I stood in my corner office on the 34th floor of a Chicago high-rise, watching snow fall over the city, while my brother's voicemail replayed in my mind. The architecture firm I had built over 9 years occupied this entire floor, and every drafting table, every blueprint, every award on the wall represented choices that cost me weekends, relationships, and years of sleep. I had sacrificed everything to build Wheeler Design Group, from a solo practice operating out of my apartment into one of the most respected boutique firms in the Midwest. We had designed hospitals, museums, corporate headquarters, and residential projects that won national awards and changed skylines. 63 employees depended on the company I had created, and I carried that responsibility every single day. My lake cabin in northern Wisconsin was supposed to be my escape. The one place where deadlines and client demands faded into the sound of loons calling across the water and wind rustling through pine trees. I had designed it myself during a particularly brutal year of work, sketching plans at midnight in this very office, dreaming of a sanctuary that existed solely for me. "Mom says the cabin's mine now," Ryan had said in his message, his voice carrying that familiar tone of entitlement I had heard since childhood. "I'm moving in this Saturday. Finally getting out of my apartment and into some real space. Thanks for being cool about it, sis." I hadn't been cool about it. I hadn't been consulted at all. The casual presumption in his voice, as if my property were simply a family resource to be allocated by our mother, made my hands tighten around my phone. My mother's text had arrived an hour before Ryan's voicemail, casual and dismissive. "Gave Ryan permission to use the cabin. He needs stability right now. You're never there anyway. Family helps family." Ryan was 38 years old, 4 years my junior, and had spent those years perfecting the art of minimal effort. He bounced between jobs, relationships, and living situations with the confidence of someone who had never faced real consequences. Our mother had always been there to cushion his landings, using money she didn't have or favors she couldn't deliver. Now she had promised him my cabin, a property I had designed myself, financed with my own earnings, and built as my personal sanctuary from the relentless demands of running an architecture firm. "You have so much already," Mom had added in a follow-up text. "Your brother just needs a fresh start. His girlfriend left him and he lost his job again. The cabin would give him time to figure things out." I turned from my office window and pulled out my phone. The security system I had installed last spring was comprehensive, state-of-the-art sensors and cameras covering every angle. I had added it after Ryan mentioned during Thanksgiving that he drove up to check on the place while I was in Tokyo for a design conference. When I returned, I found beer cans in the recycling, my expensive fishing gear rearranged, and my bed clearly slept in. He had a key from years ago, when I had briefly trusted him to winterize the pipes during an extended work trip. That trust had been misplaced. I opened the security app and began programming. Saturday morning, 6 a.m., full activation. Motion sensors, trespassing alerts, automatic notification to local law enforcement. My fingers moved quickly across the screen, setting up zones and response protocols. The cabin would become a fortress, legally protecting my property with documented evidence of any unauthorized entry. My name is Cassandra Wheeler. I'm 42 years old, founder and principal architect of Wheeler Design Group. I've spent nearly a decade building something from nothing, and I was done letting family obligation erode what I had earned. To understand why my mother felt entitled to give away my property, you have to understand the Wheeler family dynamics. My father died when I was 16, leaving behind a modest life insurance policy and a family that had never learned to function without his steady presence. Mom retreated into grief, and Ryan, only 12 at the time, became her focus. Her entire world narrowed to protecting her baby boy. From any hardship or consequence, I became invisible. Not intentionally neglected, but consistently overlooked. While Mom drove Ryan to sports practices and tutoring sessions and social events, I learned to cook dinner, do laundry, and manage household bills. I got myself through high school, earned scholarships for college, and worked 3 jobs to cover what financial aid didn't. Ryan got different treatment. His grades didn't matter because he was going through a hard time. His behavior issues were dismissed as processing his grief. His complete lack of motivation was reframed as finding himself. When I graduated with honors from architecture school, Mom couldn't attend because Ryan had a minor crisis that required her immediate attention. When I opened my own firm at 33, she forgot to mention it to anyone in the extended family. When I won the Illinois Design Award 2 years ago, she called to ask if I could lend Ryan money for a business venture that evaporated within months. But Ryan's failures were never his fault. The jobs that didn't work out were because of toxic management. The relationships that ended were because of crazy ex-girlfriends. The businesses that collapsed were because of bad timing or unfair competition. And Mom enabled every excuse, every restart, every expectation that someone else would fix what Ryan refused to address. The cabin had been my declaration of independence from that cycle. I designed it myself, incorporating the clean lines and natural materials that defined my architectural style. I saved for 3 years to afford the lakefront property. I supervised construction personally, visiting the site every weekend for 8 months until the final nail was driven. The cabin cost $890,000 when everything was finished, including the land, the construction, the custom finishes I had specified down to the last doorknob. It was worth significantly more now, both financially and emotionally. The lakefront property alone had appreciated substantially in the years since my purchase, and the design had been featured in 2 architectural magazines as an example of minimalist retreat design. Every corner reflected my vision, my taste, my hard-won success. The floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the lake view. The open floor plan that maximized natural light. The handcrafted kitchen where I had learned to cook meals just for myself. The master bedroom positioned to catch morning sun over the water. I had hired local craftsmen, supported Wisconsin businesses, and created something beautiful in a place that mattered to me. Not family money. Not inherited wealth. Just 9 years of grueling work, converted into a sanctuary that existed solely because I had earned it, and my mother had given it to my brother because I wasn't using it. As if frequency of use determined ownership. As if Ryan's need outweighed my rights. As if everything I had built existed primarily to support someone who had never built anything himself. Thursday evening, I called my mother. The conversation went exactly as I expected. "You can't be selfish about this, Cassandra," she said, her voice carrying the familiar tone of disappointed expectation. "Ryan is struggling. He needs somewhere to recover and get back on his feet. The cabin is just sitting there empty most of the time." "The cabin is my property, Mom, not yours to give away." "I didn't give it away. I just told Ryan he could stay there for a while. A few months, maybe a year. Until he figures out his next steps." "Did you ask me first?" Silence stretched across the line. We both knew the answer. "I didn't think I needed to ask," she said finally. "You have your big fancy firm and your Chicago apartment and more money than you know what to do with. Ryan has nothing. The cabin is just one thing you could share." "The cabin is mine. I designed it, paid for it, and maintain it. Ryan was never invited to live there." "You're being cruel." Her voice shifted to the wounded tone she deployed whenever someone challenged her decisions. "After everything I've done for you, raising you alone after your father died, this is how you repay me? By denying your own brother a place to stay?" I closed my eyes, summoning patience from reserves I hadn't known I possessed. "What exactly have you done for me, Mom?" "I raised myself. I paid for my own education. I built my own career. When did you ever sacrifice anything for me specifically?" The silence that followed was longer this time. I could hear her breathing, could almost see her searching for examples that didn't exist. "This is exactly the problem with you," she said finally, deflecting rather than answering. "You keep score. You hold grudges. Ryan is your brother. Family doesn't treat family like this. Family also doesn't give away property that doesn't belong to them. Tell Ryan the cabin isn't available. He's not moving in on Saturday or any other day. He's already packed. He terminated his lease. Where is he supposed to go? That's his problem to solve. He's 38 years old. Time he learned to handle his own housing." I ended the call before she could respond, my hands shaking with a mixture of anger and adrenaline. The conversation had been pointless, as I knew it would be. Mom wouldn't warn Ryan off. She would probably call him immediately to complain about my selfishness, reinforcing his belief that the cabin was rightfully his. Which was fine, because I had prepared for exactly this scenario. Friday passed in the peculiar limbo of waiting. I worked at my office, reviewing building plans and meeting with clients, while part of my mind remained fixed on my phone and the security app that would soon capture whatever unfolded at my cabin. My project manager, Elena, noticed my distraction during our afternoon review of a museum commission. She raised an eyebrow but said nothing until the meeting ended and we were alone. "Something happening with the property up north?" she asked. Elena had worked with me for 6 years and knew more about my family complications than most. "My brother thinks he's moving in on Saturday. My mother told him he could." Elena's expression shifted to something between sympathy and alarm. "Your mother doesn't own that cabin." "No, she doesn't. But she spent 38 years teaching Ryan that reality is negotiable." "What are you going to do?" "Document everything, and let the consequences unfold. I've got security systems that would make a bank jealous. Whatever Ryan tries, I'll have proof." That evening, I drove to my Chicago apartment and packed a small bag. I had booked a room at a bed and breakfast in a town about 20 miles from my cabin, close enough to respond if needed, but far enough to maintain distance. I would watch Saturday's events unfold through my phone screen, documented and legal. My phone rang near midnight. Ryan's name appeared on the screen. I declined the call. He called twice more. Declined. Then a text arrived. "Cassie, Mom said you're being weird about the cabin, whatever. I'm moving in tomorrow like planned. You're never there anyway. Stop being dramatic." I typed my response carefully. "The cabin is private property. I'm the sole owner. You don't have permission to be there, and any attempt to enter will be treated as criminal trespassing." His reply came immediately. "Lol. Okay, drama queen, see you tomorrow. Or actually, I won't because you're never there." I silenced my phone and tried to sleep. It came in fragments, interrupted by memories I'd spent years trying to process. Ryan crashing my car in college and Mom paying for repairs with money I later learned had been earmarked for my textbooks. Ryan announcing his engagement at my housewarming party, redirecting all attention to himself. Ryan borrowing $5,000 for an emergency that turned out to be a Vegas trip with friends. Every time, Mom had defended him. Every time, I had been expected to accommodate, forgive, and provide. Not this time. Saturday morning arrived gray and cold, typical late autumn weather in Wisconsin. I left my B&B at 6 a.m., driving through empty rural roads to a small diner where I ordered coffee and connected to their Wi-Fi. My security system showed the cabin peaceful in the early light. Frost covered the deck. Smoke drifted across the lake from a neighbor's chimney. Everything appeared exactly as I had left it 6 weeks ago during my last visit. The morning crept forward with excruciating slowness. I worked on my laptop, responding to emails and sketching concepts for an upcoming project, while my phone sat open to the security feed. Every few minutes I checked the cameras. Still quiet. Still empty. At 11:47 a.m., a rental truck appeared on my driveway camera. I set down my coffee and watched, heart pounding, as the truck crawled up the gravel drive and parked in front of my cabin. Ryan emerged from the driver's side, stretching dramatically after what I assumed had been a long drive from his Chicago apartment. He looked around at the property, with the satisfied expression of someone surveying their new domain. Behind him, a woman climbed out of the passenger side. I didn't recognize her, probably a new girlfriend helping with the move. 2 more people emerged from the back of the truck. Friends, I assumed, recruited to help carry furniture. Ryan had brought a full moving crew. My stomach tightened. He hadn't just planned to stay temporarily. He had packed his entire life into that truck, bringing furniture and friends, treating my cabin as his new permanent home. I pulled out a second phone and began recording the security footage, creating a backup that would survive any attempt to delete evidence. Then I watched as Ryan approached my front door. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a key. The key I had never asked him to return, the one from years ago when I had trusted him with temporary access. He inserted it into the lock and turned. Nothing happened. He tried again, wiggling the key with increasing frustration. The lock I had changed 6 months ago rejected his attempts completely. His expression shifted from confusion to irritation as he realized the key no longer worked. The woman approached, asking something I couldn't hear. Ryan shook his head and pulled out his phone. My phone rang seconds later. I declined. He called again. Declined. A text appeared. Cassie, what the hell? The key doesn't work. Did you change the locks? I typed back. I warned you. The cabin is private property. You don't have permission to be there. Leave now. I watched him read the message on my security feed, saw his face contort with anger. He showed the phone to the woman, who looked up at the cabin with an expression that suggested she was reconsidering her involvement in this adventure. Ryan marched around to the side of the cabin, heading for the back deck and the sliding glass door that overlooked the lake. I switched camera views, following his progress. He tried the sliding door. Locked and reinforced with a security bar I had installed after his Thanksgiving inspection of my property. He tested windows. All locked, all monitored. He even tried the small window in the laundry room, standing on a patio chair to reach it. The motion sensors tracked his movement, logging every attempt. Finally, he returned to the front of the cabin and stood before the door, hands on his hips, clearly trying to decide his next move. I activated the two-way audio through the smart doorbell. Ryan, this is your final warning. You are trespassing on private property. Leave immediately or I will contact law enforcement. He jumped at the sound of my voice, looking around wildly before spotting the doorbell camera. He stepped directly in front of it, his face filling my screen. Are you serious right now? Mom gave me permission. This is family property. Mom doesn't own this cabin. I do. Solely. There is no family property. This is my house, and you were never invited to live here. You're never here. It just sits empty most of the year while I'm crammed into a studio apartment. How is that fair? Fair has nothing to do with property ownership. I bought this cabin. I paid for it. It's mine. Your housing situation is not my responsibility. The woman approached, placing a hand on Ryan's arm. I could hear fragments of her voice through the microphone. Maybe we should just go. This seems complicated. Didn't know it was like this. Ryan shook her off. No, Mom said I could have this place. Cassie's just being spiteful because she's always been jealous of how close Mom and I are. I almost laughed at the audacity. Jealous. As if I envied the relationship that had produced a 38-year-old man incapable of supporting himself. Ryan, I'm calling the police in 60 seconds if you don't leave. You wouldn't call the cops on your own brother. Watch me. I was already dialing the local sheriff's office, explaining the situation to a dispatcher who took notes efficiently. Yes, I was the property owner. Yes, the individuals were there without permission. No, they had not gained entry yet. Yes, I had security footage documenting everything. Units are en route, the dispatcher said. Please stay on the line and continue monitoring the situation. On my screen, Ryan was now arguing with his friends. The two men from the back of the truck had retreated to the vehicle, clearly wanting no part of whatever was developing. The woman stood apart, arms crossed, looking increasingly uncomfortable. Ryan paced across my deck, phone pressed to his ear. Calling Mom, I assumed. Getting reinforcements. Seeking validation that he was the victim in this scenario. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Call off the police immediately. You're going to get your brother arrested over a stupid cabin. I raised you better than this cruelty. I didn't respond. The deputies would arrive soon, and Ryan's choices would determine what happened next. Two sheriff's vehicles pulled into my driveway at 12:23 p.m. I watched through multiple camera angles as deputies emerged and approached the rental truck where Ryan and his friends had retreated. I couldn't hear the initial conversation, but I could see body language. One deputy spoke to Ryan while another approached the woman, who immediately produced her phone and appeared to be showing them something, probably evidence that she had believed this was a legitimate move. Ryan's gestures grew increasingly animated. He pointed at the cabin, at his phone, at the deputies themselves. The typical Ryan performance when authority figures didn't immediately accept his version of events. The deputy near Ryan held up a hand, clearly requesting calm. He pulled out a notepad and began writing, asking questions I couldn't hear. Ryan's friends stood silently by the truck, obviously eager to leave. My phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I answered. Miss Wheeler? This is Deputy Carlson with the Williams County Sheriff's Office. We're at your property on Lakewood Road. Can you confirm you're the owner, and that these individuals don't have permission to be here? I'm the owner. My brother Ryan Wheeler is attempting to move into my property without authorization. I changed the locks months ago, specifically, because he had previously entered without permission. Our mother told him he could live here, but she has no ownership interest and no authority to grant access. Can you provide documentation of ownership? I'll email copies of the deed, property tax records, and mortgage documentation within 5 minutes. My attorney is Marcus Webb at Webb Legal Partners in Chicago. He can verify everything. Thank you. Please hold while I speak with your brother. I watched the deputy return to Ryan, saw him relay what I had said. Ryan's face reddened with fury. He pulled out his phone and thrust it toward the deputy, probably showing Mom's texts as proof of permission. The deputy examined the phone, then spoke calmly, shaking his head. Whatever Ryan was claiming, it wasn't persuading law enforcement. The deputy returned to his vehicle, and I could see him on a laptop, probably reviewing the documentation I had just sent. After a few minutes, he emerged and approached Ryan again. This time, his posture was more authoritative. He gestured toward the rental truck, then down the driveway. The message was clear. Leave. Ryan erupted. Even through cameras without audio, I could see him shouting, his face twisted with outrage. His friends grabbed his arms, physically pulling him toward the truck, while the woman retreated to the passenger side, looking like she wanted to be anywhere else. The deputies stood firm, watching as Ryan was essentially dragged away by his own moving crew. He shook off his friends and stormed to the truck, slamming the door so hard the whole vehicle shook. The truck reversed down my driveway. I watched it disappear from camera view, followed by the sheriff's vehicles at a distance, ensuring departure. Deputy Carlson called back. They've left the property. Your brother was unhappy, but not threatening. We've documented the incident, and I'd recommend you follow up with a formal no trespass order if you want legal protection against future attempts. I'll do that Monday. Thank you, Deputy. After hanging up, I sat in the diner booth for a long moment, processing what had just happened. Ryan had been turned away from my property by law enforcement. His moving truck full of furniture he would now need to store somewhere else. The fallout would be significant. Mom would be furious. Extended family would hear a version of events that painted me as the villain. Ryan would escalate his victim narrative to anyone who would listen. But my cabin remained mine, untouched, protected. I ordered another coffee and started drafting an email to my attorney. The phone calls started within the hour. Mom called 7 times. I declined each one, letting her rage transfer to voicemail. I cannot believe you called the police on your own brother. What is wrong with you? Ryan is devastated. He's sitting in a parking lot somewhere with all his belongings because you couldn't share one cabin you barely use. This is the most selfish thing you've ever done. Aunt Patricia called next, her voice sharp with judgment. Cassandra, your mother told me what happened. I'm shocked. Family helps family. You have so much and Ryan has so little. Would it really have hurt you to let him stay for a while? My cousin Megan sent a text. Heard about the cabin thing. Ryan's posting about it on Facebook. Says you're a sociopath. Just wanted you to know what's being said. I pulled up Facebook and found Ryan's post immediately. A carefully crafted narrative describing how his wealthy architect's sister had called police to prevent him from staying at a family vacation property during his time of need. The comments were predictably one-sided. Hearts and supportive messages from people who only knew his version of events. So sorry you're dealing with this. Family should never treat each other like this. She sounds like a horrible person. I screenshot everything, documenting his public campaign alongside the security footage I had already preserved. If he wanted to play this game in the court of public opinion, I would have evidence ready when the truth became relevant. That evening, I drove to my cabin for the first time in 6 weeks. The sun was setting over the lake, painting the water in shades of orange and gold. I unlocked my door with keys only I possessed and walked through each room, verifying that nothing had been disturbed. Everything was exactly as I had left it. My furniture, my art, my carefully chosen details. The kitchen, where I had taught myself to make proper coffee. The living room, where I read books by firelight on winter evenings. The bedroom where I finally slept peacefully, away from the demands of running a business. Ryan had tried to take this from me, using Mom's blessing as justification. He had failed because I had finally stopped accommodating, stopped sacrificing, stopped letting family obligation override my own interests. I made dinner in my kitchen, opened a bottle of wine, and sat on my deck despite the cold, watching stars emerge over the lake. My phone buzzed periodically with messages I didn't read. The world outside this property could wait until I was ready to engage. For tonight, I had won, and I intended to enjoy the victory. Sunday brought escalation, as I had expected. I woke to 34 missed calls and a text from Mom that chilled me more than the November morning. Ryan is driving back to the cabin. He says he's going to get in one way or another. Please, Cassandra, just let him stay. This has gone too far. I checked my security cameras immediately. The property appeared quiet. No vehicles in the driveway, no movement detected. But Mom's warning suggested Ryan was en route, potentially with a plan beyond simply trying his old key. I called the Williams County Sheriff's Office and requested to speak with Deputy Carlson. He was off duty, but another deputy took my report. I have credible information that my brother may attempt another entry to my property, potentially through forced means. I'm requesting increased patrols and immediate response if my security system detects intrusion. The deputy took notes and assured me they would monitor the situation. I spent the morning on high alert, watching every camera feed while drinking coffee that went cold in my hands. At 11:23 a.m., Ryan's rental truck appeared on my driveway camera again. But this time he wasn't alone with friends and a girlfriend. This time, he had brought my mother. I watched them emerge from the truck together, Mom clutching her coat against the cold, while Ryan marched toward my cabin with renewed determination. His friends from yesterday were notably absent. This was a family operation now. Mom approached the door first, knocking firmly. Cassandra, I know you're watching. We need to talk about this like adults. I activated the audio. Mom, you're also trespassing. Neither of you has permission to be here. She looked up at the camera, her expression a mixture of frustration and manufactured hurt. I drove 4 hours to fix this. The least you can do is talk to me face to face. There's nothing to fix. The cabin is mine. Ryan isn't moving in. That's final. Ryan pushed past Mom, standing directly before the camera. This is insane, Cassie. You're going to have our own mother arrested. What is wrong with you? What's wrong is that you both believe you're entitled to property I own. I've been clear. You've been warned. If you attempt to enter this cabin, the sheriff will be called immediately. Mom stepped forward, her voice taking on the wounded tone I knew so well. After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me. I raised you alone after your father died. I sacrificed everything to give you opportunities. And now you won't share one cabin with your brother who's going through a difficult time. What opportunities did you give me, Mom? I worked 3 jobs through college because there was no college fund, not after you spent it on Ryan's failed businesses. I missed my own graduation celebrations because you couldn't leave Ryan alone for a weekend. I built my career without a single piece of help from you. So tell me, what exactly do I owe you? Silence stretched across the audio connection. Mom's face cycled through emotions. Shock, denial, the dawning recognition that her carefully constructed narrative had holes. That's not fair, she said finally. You've always been independent. You never needed help. I needed help. I just learned not to expect it. Ryan learned the opposite lesson, which is why he's 38 years old and trying to move into his sister's property because he can't figure out how to support himself. Ryan grabbed Mom's arm. This is pointless. She's not going to listen. Let's just get in and deal with the consequences later. He walked around the side of the cabin, heading for the back deck. I switched camera views, watching him test the sliding door again. Still locked. He examined the windows, searching for weakness. Then he picked up a decorative rock from my garden. Ryan, if you break my window, that's criminal damage. You will be arrested. He turned to face the camera I knew was watching him. You think I care? You've already destroyed my reputation, called cops on me in front of my friends, made me look like a criminal. What's one more charge? He raised the rock. I called 911. This is Cassandra Wheeler at the property on Lakewood Road. My brother is currently attempting to break into my cabin. He has a rock and is threatening to smash a window. Deputies were here yesterday for the same situation. Please send help immediately. The dispatcher confirmed units were being dispatched. On my screen, Ryan stood frozen, rock still raised, clearly deciding whether to follow through. Mom appeared around the corner. Ryan, don't. Please. This isn't worth going to jail over. She called the cops again. His voice cracked with something between rage and despair. Our own sister called the cops on us. I know, but breaking the window won't solve anything. Put the rock down. Slowly, Ryan lowered his arm. He let the rock fall to the ground and stood there, shoulders slumped, looking suddenly much older than his 38 years. The first sheriff's vehicle arrived within minutes, sirens silent, but lights flashing. Deputy Carlson emerged, apparently called back to duty for this escalating situation. I watched him approach Ryan and Mom, his posture professional but clearly recognizing this as a repeat incident. The conversation was brief. Ryan was asked to step away from the cabin. Mom was asked for identification. Both were informed they were on private property without permission. This time, the consequences were more severe. I saw Deputy Carlson speaking into his radio, then approaching Ryan with handcuffs visible. Ryan's entire body went rigid. Mom stepped forward, pleading, but another deputy intercepted her. My phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I answered. Miss Wheeler? Deputy Carlson again. Based on yesterday's incident, today's return visit, and his threat to break your window, we're placing your brother under arrest for criminal trespassing and attempted criminal damage. Your mother is being issued a formal warning. Do you want to press charges? I thought about Ryan in handcuffs. About Mom watching her precious son face real consequences for the first time in his life. About the family dynamics that had brought us to this moment, 4 hours north of Chicago, standing on property I had built with my own hands, while they tried to take it from me. Yes, press all applicable charges. The hours after Ryan's arrest blurred together in a haze of phone calls, voicemails, and the strange quiet of my cabin when I finally allowed myself inside. Mom didn't drive back to Chicago. She drove to the Williams County Jail, posting bail for Ryan and returning him to the rental truck that still sat in a public parking lot downtown. I learned this through a series of increasingly hostile messages. You had your brother arrested, over a cabin. I will never forgive you for this. Ryan is broken. He won't stop crying. Are you happy now? Your father would be ashamed of what you've become. That last message stung more than I expected. Dad had been the reasonable one, the voice that occasionally pushed back against Mom's relentless enabling. But he had also never directly challenged her, had never established the boundaries that might have prevented Ryan from becoming who he was. I silenced my phone and built a fire in my fireplace. The cabin warmed slowly, wood crackling in the hearth, while shadows danced across walls I had designed myself. Outside, the lake lay dark and still, a mirror reflecting starlight. For the first time in weeks, I felt genuinely at peace. Not happy, exactly, not with the wreckage of family relationships smoking behind me. But settled, certain that I had done the right thing, even though it had come at significant cost. Monday morning, I called my attorney and initiated the formal process for a restraining order against Ryan. Marcus listened to the full account, asked clarifying questions, and confirmed that the criminal charges would strengthen my case. He'll probably plead down to something minor, Marcus said. First offense, no actual damage to property. But the arrest record exists now, and the restraining order will have teeth. If he comes within 500 feet of your property again, it's automatic jail time. That's what I need. Clear boundaries with legal enforcement. Understood. I'll have paperwork filed by end of week. The restraining order was granted the following Tuesday. Ryan was prohibited from approaching me, my Chicago apartment, my office, or my lake cabin. The judge noted the pattern of behavior, the escalation from unauthorized entry to threatened property damage, and the clear disregard for property rights. Mom's response arrived via email, the medium she used when she wanted something documented. Cassandra, you have destroyed this family. Ryan cannot come within 500 feet of you, which means he cannot attend any family gathering where you might be present. You have effectively exiled your own brother. I hope whatever satisfaction you get from this is worth the cost. Don't expect to hear from me again." I read her words twice, then archived the email without responding. The family gatherings she referenced were events where I had always been an afterthought anyway. The loss felt less severe than she probably imagined. The weeks that followed brought a strange combination of relief and grief. Relief because my cabin remained mine, unthreatened and peaceful. I spent a long weekend there in early December, reading by the fire and hiking through fresh snow to the lake's frozen edge. No phone calls interrupted. No family demands intruded. Just me and the sanctuary I had built. Grief because the family I had grown up with was effectively gone. Not dead, but severed. The connections cut so deeply they might never heal. Ryan's court date came and went. He pleaded no contest to criminal trespassing and received probation, community service, and a permanent mark on his record. I didn't attend the hearing but received updates from Marcus. He seemed subdued, my attorney reported. His public defender mentioned he's staying with a friend and looking for work. Your mother wasn't present. That surprised me. Mom, who had driven 4 hours to help Ryan break into my cabin, had not appeared for his day in court. Something had shifted between them, though I didn't know what. I found out a week before Christmas. Aunt Patricia called, her tone notably different from our previous conversation. She sounded tired, uncertain, nothing like the confident judge who had criticized me for not sharing. "Cassandra, I owe you an apology. I didn't know the full story when I called you before. I just heard your mother's version, and I assumed. What changed?" Ryan came to stay with us for a few days after his court date. Within 48 hours, he had helped himself to money from Patricia's purse, used my husband's credit card for online purchases, and tried to convince our daughter that she should let him live in her apartment. I closed my eyes. The pattern playing out exactly as it always had. Ryan finding new targets, new enablers, new people to exploit. "We asked him to leave," Patricia continued. "And then I started asking questions. Called your mother. Called other family members. The picture that emerged was different from what I had believed." "Different how?" "Your mother has been telling different versions of this story to different people. To me, she said, you had abandoned Ryan during a mental health crisis. To your cousin Margaret, she said you had stolen the cabin from family trust funds. To the neighbors, she implied you were involved in financial crimes through your architecture firm. None of it was consistent, and all of it was designed to make you the villain." The revelation wasn't surprising, exactly. I had suspected Mom was managing narratives, but the extent of her campaign shocked me. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I realized I was used as a weapon against you. We all were. And because I want you to know that not everyone believes what your mother is saying. Some of us have figured out what's really happening." After we hung up, I sat with the information, processing its implications. Mom hadn't just defended Ryan. She had actively campaigned against me, constructing a web of lies that painted her successful daughter as a criminal and a heartless monster. Some families dysfunction quietly, behind closed doors. Mine had gone public with its war. Christmas arrived with an empty apartment and a relief I hadn't expected. For the first time in memory, I wasn't obligated to attend a family gathering where I would be overlooked, criticized, and asked to contribute more than I received. No driving to Mom's house. No buying presents for people who barely acknowledged mine. No watching Ryan receive attention and resources while I faded into the background. Instead, I spent Christmas Eve at my cabin. Snow fell steadily outside while I cooked a meal I actually wanted to eat, drank wine I had chosen for myself, and watched holiday movies without anyone changing the channel. Christmas morning, I woke to a frozen lake and a sky so blue it hurt to look at. I made coffee, built a fire, and sat with my thoughts in perfect silence. My phone buzzed with a text from Alina, my project manager. "Merry Christmas, boss. Hope you're enjoying the cabin. You've earned it." Other messages followed. Friends from architecture school. Colleagues who had become friends. People who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. No message from Mom. No message from Ryan. The silence from that direction felt like freedom. I spent New Year's Eve at my cabin as well, watching fireworks over the lake from a distant celebration. toasting midnight with a glass of champagne I didn't have to share. January brought unexpected developments. Ryan called me from an unfamiliar number, probably because I had blocked his regular phone. I answered before checking, assuming it was a work call. "Cassie, please don't hang up." His voice was different, quieter. The entitled edge I had heard for years seemed worn away, replaced by something that sounded almost humble. "You're violating the restraining order by contacting me." "I know, I needed to say something. I'm getting help. Therapy. The court ordered it as part of my probation, but I'm actually trying to use it." I said nothing, waiting. The therapist has been asking me to look at patterns in my life, why I keep ending up in the same situations, why I expect other people to solve my problems. He paused. "I'm starting to understand some things I didn't before." "What things?" "That Mom trained me to be helpless, that I've spent my whole life believing someone else would fix things if I just complained loudly enough. That I was trying to take your cabin because I genuinely believed I deserved it more than you did." The admission hung between us, raw and uncomfortable. And now? Now I'm trying to figure out how to actually be a functional adult. I got a job, nothing fancy, just warehouse work, but I show up every day and I earn my own money. I'm renting a room from a guy I met at group therapy. It's not much, but it's mine. I processed his words, searching for the manipulation I had learned to expect. The angle, the ask, the hook that would turn this apparent vulnerability into another demand. "What do you want from me, Ryan?" "Nothing." He actually laughed, a small sad sound. "Honestly, nothing. I know I can't come near you or your property. I know I burned every bridge with the family. I just wanted you to know that I'm finally understanding what you tried to tell me, that I had choices and I kept making bad ones." "And Mom?" "We're not talking much. When she found out I was in therapy, she told me I was betraying the family by airing dirty laundry to strangers. Apparently, acknowledging problems is worse than having them." That sounded exactly like Mom. Image over substance, denial over growth. "I don't know what to say, Ryan." "You don't have to say anything. I know I can't fix what I did. I just wanted you to know that someone finally told me no, and it might have been the best thing that ever happened to me." He hung up before I could respond. I sat with the phone in my hand for a long moment, not sure what to feel. Ryan had sounded different, genuinely different, but years of experience had taught me not to trust his apparent changes. This could be another manipulation, a longer game designed to eventually reclaim what he felt entitled to. Or it could be real. The first genuine growth my brother had shown in decades, prompted by legal consequences and forced therapy. I didn't know. But I also didn't need to know. Whether Ryan changed or didn't change, my boundaries remained the same. The restraining order stayed in place. The cabin stayed mine. The life I had built stayed protected. His growth, if it was real, was his business, not mine. Spring arrived slowly in Wisconsin, ice receding from the lake in gradual stages while birds returned to fill the silence with song. I spent more time at my cabin, working remotely when possible, finding that the creative demands of architecture came easier when surrounded by natural beauty. My firm landed a major commission, a cultural center that would become the largest project we had ever undertaken. The design called for innovation, risk, the kind of bold choices that had originally drawn me to architecture. I threw myself into the work, sketching concepts at my cabin's desk while morning light streamed through windows I had positioned for exactly this purpose. Mom never called. I heard through Aunt Patricia that she was telling people I had abandoned the family, that my success had made me cold and selfish. The narrative she spun grew more elaborate over time, incorporating fictional details about my supposed cruelty and greed. I stopped listening to the reports. The people who mattered knew the truth. The others could believe whatever they wanted. On the anniversary of the day Ryan had first attempted to move into my cabin, I sat on my deck and watched the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold and rose. A year had passed. The cabin remained mine, unthreatened and peaceful. My business thrived, my boundaries held. I thought about all the years I had spent accommodating family demands, sacrificing my own needs to maintain relationships that were never reciprocal. The time and energy poured into people who saw me as a resource rather than a person. Those years were gone. But the years ahead were mine to shape. I raised a glass to the empty air, toasting no one and everyone, to boundaries, to self-respect, to the hard lesson that love without limits is not love but exploitation. The sun sank below the tree line. Stars emerged, one by one, scattered across a sky so vast it made human drama seem small and temporary. My phone sat silent in my pocket. No demands, no crises, no family obligations masquerading as love. Just me and the sanctuary I had built, protected by walls both physical and emotional. I had chosen myself over family obligation. And in doing so, I had finally found the peace I deserved. Looking back now, I understand what I couldn't see while living through the chaos. Every boundary I set felt like a declaration of war at the time, but it was actually an act of self-preservation. My mother believed that family entitled her to my resources. My brother believed that need justified taking. Together, they had constructed a system where my success existed to subsidize their comfort, where my boundaries were selfish and their entitlement was normal. Breaking that system required consequences they had never faced before. Sheriff's deputies, arrest records, restraining orders. The legal infrastructure that society builds to protect people from exactly this kind of exploitation. Some people will tell you that family is everything, that blood connections transcend behavior, that forgiveness should be unconditional. Those people have probably never had a family member try to steal their property while claiming it was their birthright. The truth is messier. Family can be everything or nothing. Blood connections mean exactly as much as the people involved choose to honor. And forgiveness without changed behavior is just permission to be harmed again. My cabin still stands on the shore of that Wisconsin lake, a testament to what I built with my own hands and protected with my own boundaries. I visit regularly now, no longer checking over my shoulder for unwanted visitors. The restraining order has never been violated. The security system watches but rarely alerts. Ryan, from what I hear through the family grapevine, is still working, still in therapy, still learning to be the adult he should have become decades ago. We haven't spoken since that single phone call, and we may never speak again. Some relationships can't survive the truth of what they were. Mom has constructed a narrative where she is the victim and I am the monster. She tells anyone who will listen about her cruel daughter who chose property over family. Some people believe her. Others, having seen the documentation or experienced Ryan's patterns themselves, understand the fuller picture. I've stopped caring which group is larger. The people who matter know the truth. So, if you're reading this and you recognize something of your own story in mine, let me leave you with this. Your property is yours. Your boundaries are valid. Your right to say no does not require explanation or apology. And when family members treat your success as a resource to be exploited rather than an achievement to be celebrated, you are allowed to protect yourself with whatever legal means necessary. Love should never mean giving up what you've built to someone who didn't help you build it. And peace sometimes means letting go of people who only saw you as useful. I let go. And I finally found the sanctuary I had been building all along, not just in wood and glass and lakefront views, but in the boundaries that made them truly mine. The cabin still stands on that Wisconsin lake. I visit often now, without fear, without checking over my shoulder. The loons still call across the water at dusk, the pine trees still whisper in the wind, and the woman who sits on that deck, watching sunsets paint the water gold, finally knows what peace actually feels like. It took legal consequences to establish what should have been obvious from the start. My property is mine. My work built it. My choices protect it. And no amount of family obligation can override that fundamental truth. If you're facing your own version of this story, remember what I learned the hard way. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect what you've built. You are allowed to choose yourself, even when family calls that selfishness. Because some battles are worth fighting. And some sanctuaries are worth defending. Mine was. And it still is.